That's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
People
Okay,
usually
good.
have some type of like trouble when they connect the mic or something. For some reason, StreamYard, uh, I don't know, it's not the best.
I don't know what it is, man. I think these headphones, I just bought these and they're cheap Apple ones, they just keep breaking on me. I think
Yeah.
that's a big part of it too. I have something going on with that. So let me that works good though. I'm glad it's working. I'll just do it through the speaker. It
Yeah,
shouldn't
perfect. Can you hear
shouldn't
me well
interfere.
though?
Yeah, I can hear you. It shouldn't
Okay.
interfere with the sound. It's not echoing or anything, is it?
No, nothing. I
Cool.
hear you very well.
Maybe even let me try these headphones, see if this works.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if this will work. No, it's not going to work because it's not the audio jack ones. That's fine. Cool. All right. Ready to rock and roll?
Christian, how are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Appreciate you having me on.
How's your week been?
It's been amazing, dude. Just cruising along. A lot of good work and play. A lot of combination of the two,
I love it. You were in Costa Rica, right?
Yeah, man. Was there for a good month, doing a lot of cool things like a retreat. There's a music festival, bouncing around. Good farmers market foods. It's amazing.
Yeah, I saw. Everything looked very, very cool.
Heck yeah, man.
9-day fast as well, right?
Yes, dude. I'm going to be doing another one here next week,
crazy.
actually.
9-day?
Not 9 days, 90 hours.
Oh, my bad. How many days
90
is
hours
that?
is still quite a bit, but 9 days would be a little
Yeah.
intense. I think I'd be atrophying at that point, so I don't want to get to that part,
That's what? 4.5?
4 days, just about 4 days, yeah.
Wow. Wow. And why did you start fasting? I mean, what got you into deep fasts?
Yeah, I got a gut bug when I was down there. Everyone that was in the group ended up getting some weird traveling viral bug thing, so that was weird. So I just had to work with that, and it was like, okay, if I'm having a gut bug, I have no appetite anyway. Might as well just fast for the time being to cleanse the gut and then
Yeah,
reintroduce the
that's a good
food again.
move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. How do you approach your deep fasts? What do you do?
Man, I mean, my best fasts have been with electrolytes, good quality salt throughout the day. It's been essential, good quality water, some binders included as well. So some chelators to heavy metals, mold, and things like that. Those help a lot on a microcellular level, like zeolite. It's a great compound that can help out with like heavy metals, and carbon-based binders are really good for binding to things like mold, mycotoxins. So just took a bunch of those, probiotics to cleanse the gut. Lemon is okay at times. If you're active, you can metabolize that pretty quick. Apple cider vinegar, little splashes of that, and that's pretty much it. Pretty basic. Methylene blue I played around with too. That was pretty nice.
Really? Yeah. How'd you break the fast?
Broke it with a ton of fruit, man, because I usually don't do that, but I usually go for the bone broths and like light sardines and stuff. But I opted for the fruit because I was in Costa Rica, and the papaya and mango was just perfect for it.
Yeah, I love that. What got you originally into like deep fasting?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was just like seeing a lot of people online talk about it. I started getting into the health space when I was about like 16, 17.
Wow.
Started researching a lot of that stuff. So that's just about 10 years ago. And a lot of big names out there, Ben Greenfield, Thomas DeLauer at the time. They were really preaching about this stuff. And yeah, I was captivated by it, and I was just like, okay, fasting, of course, has been done for spiritual reasons for thousands of years. There's efficacious value to that, right? More than just the physical, like I'm cleansing my body. It's like, no, it's like a mental fortitude thing. So that was the big thing. I love challenging myself with challenge, with some of these feats.
Yeah, those are really, really interesting challenges because we're so kind of, I mean, I did one for the first time. It was only 48 hours, but you realize how truly addicted you are to food and how you really start to appreciate every single bite of your food after like 2 days, 3 days of not eating, right? So yeah, it's a very interesting experience.
Totally agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, Christian. Well, I want to get started with if you can share a little bit for the listeners who don't know who you are. Who are you? What's the reason you do what you do today?
Yeah, sorry, I had to get a little sip of my coffee with the butter and cacao and stuff. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm a multifaceted human, but I label myself in this 3D realm as a bioharmonizing hippie. I love just testing everything known to man under the sun, whether it's supplements, it's diet routines, it's different protocols, peptides, anything, you name it. And, right now for a living, the majority of my income, this spiritual energy exchange of money is through coaching individuals and helping them through a lot of the difficulties in our daily life with nutrition. We're constantly bamboozled by the most synthetic things known to man put on the shelves, and it's very hyper palatable. And so helping individuals get off of the trash foods into the more the harmonizing foods, also connecting the dots to a fitness plan. Generally I work with men, so in men's groups as well, and helping them get into a really good fitness protocol to build muscle and flame off all that fat. But a big part of what I do with my work is a lot of the mindset strategies and the inner work, and that's why the program I named is Inner Fit years ago, because it's really not just about the outer reflection, the physique, and looking in the mirror good. It's about how do I feel on the inside, right? There's a lot of individuals who are fit, sick people. They look fit on the outside, they're ripped,
Yeah.
but their organs are failing. They're not feeling good. They're depressed. And my ultimate idea is, how do we combine both of those? How do we look fit in the outside and also fit in the inside, with longevity and energy and organ health and,
Mm-hmm.
all the good things. So with my clients, I work with mindset, gut, and muscle. So the mindset routines, the spirituality, identifying purpose, core values, and also working true to the muscle, the fitness plan, and then combining that with the gut, the nutrition. So the majority of my time is coaching, one-on-one coaching and group coaching. I also do a lot of content creation and partnerships with really epic companies online that are really awesome with different supplements and things like that. So a lot of different things, but that's the general synopsis of it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Why'd you start coaching?
Oh yeah, so the why, like where did it all start? So the groundwork of it was my own insecurities and things I was working through when I was younger. Around 16, 17, 18 is when I was just getting out of high school and, starting to really grow into who I am, and not necessarily feeling captivated to go out and drink and, smoke a ton of cannabis and just party and, all the things like that, which is fun, but it doesn't really get to the core of who I am. So I eventually started lifting weights at that time, which really inspired me because I was always into soccer and sports and activities, but really challenging myself to build muscle was a huge feat. It was awesome just tapping into that. That led
Mm-hmm.
into a passion for nutrition. I went to university for kinesiology and which is exercise science, and also human nutrition at the University of Arkansas. I realized I did not want to work for any big man. I didn't see any sort of uh, synchronicity when it came to what I was being taught, all the things relating to nutrition, the food pyramid, as these big conglomerates that are interjecting with the educational system. I was just seeing through all of it at a young age. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start promoting things online, just talking about passionate things, health, nutrition, fitness, all that stuff. Just started planting seeds on Instagram, and people were captivated by it. They started reaching out like, hey, do you coach? And I was like, wow, yeah, I don't, but let's get started into this. Right. So one thing led to the next, started getting more natural, organic clientele. And that led into this passion of helping others through it.
I love it, Christian. There's something that you said at the start that caught my attention a little bit. I wrote it down, which was the spiritual exchange of money. I know very few people see it like that, and the people who do have this very deep appreciation of what that is, and it's just a different way of working for that, right? So, have you always seen as this exchange of money, making money, as something like spiritual?
No, not always. I would say I just saw it as something that led to a means to an end many times. Oh, do I have $20 for a gram of weed? It's kind of like that. It wasn't like, do I have $20, which I think of now, do I have $20 for some creativity flow and insights in the evenings 3 times a week, once a week, right? That's how I shifted my perspective, is like, it's not necessarily weed I'm looking for. It's what is this sacred plant providing for me that allows me to have a spiritual change or growth or
Mm,
inspiration. So I shifted the way I look at everything. And that's not just related to, psychedelics or cannabis and stuff. It's actually much deeper than that. It's like, where am I putting my money? Is it in accordance to my value system? Because if
mhm,
I am spending things just like haphazardly, not even thinking about it, on things that aren't really in tune with my values, then I'm pretty much just wasting away everything, my ego, my soul, my spirit. And eventually that catches up on us, right? That happens to a lot of people. They end up becoming high level CEOs, and they're just spending so much money on these parties and drinks and cocktails and all this stuff, and eventually it leads to this ego death of like, why am I doing all this, right? So luckily I didn't get to that point, but I gradually woke up to the idea of, hey, money is a form of energy. The
Mm-hmm.
energy I provide into the universe, I'll get tenfold back as long as I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing so with good heartedness.
I love that. I love that, Christian. There's something that you talk about a lot, which is, to begin to control our legacy is to accept that problems actually have solutions and that we blame these problems from something external where they're actually internal, right? Um,
Mm.
how'd you really realize this in the first place? And why do you think we do this?
Yeah, I think it's easy to get into the core of that is a victimhood, the victim mindset, right? We get
Mm-hmm.
into the victimhood of like, oh, the world's out to get me, or why is this happening to me, God? There's that Bruce Almighty scene where he's just like, smite me, Almighty, smite. He's like looking up at God. There's like this storm and everything. He's like looking at God, blaming God for all his problems, and that's very common in our society. Is like we externalize everything, right? And it's because it's a protective mechanism, right? We don't like to feel like
Mm-hmm.
we're in total control of our lives, but really it's about we have 100% control over our reactions. We really do.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes into a whole conversation on like, is there full autonomy of where we go in life? Is there a sense of like, I have complete control? Like, is it what is the whole debate they talk about? Like, do you have free will, right? Is it free will or is this all pre-programmed, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
gets into a whole weeds of the same discussion of victimhood. And I strongly believe we have personal responsibility. It's our response, it's our ability to respond, right? Responsibility. And so
Mm.
I think that's one of those things. The core nuggets in my life is like, I don't want to fall into the victimhood mindset I see in my family members, my old friends. Like, I
Right.
see it. I can see it clearly in them. So it's harder to see it in myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
For all of us, it's harder to see ourselves in the mirror, but everyone else is a reflection of us. So we can see
Mm-hmm.
the things that people are doing. It helps us really enact decisions for our own betterment, right?
Yeah, I think that's something. I mean, it's funny that you say it now, but it's something that I'm realizing now. How we are, everyone is kind of a mirror of who we are. What we don't like of others is what we don't like of ourselves. And sometimes it's just um, a little bit hard to realize that for ourselves because we don't want to feel small.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Psychedelics, which you wanted to say something.
No, no, actually, we're all good.
Yeah. Okay. So psychedelics is something that you mentioned, something that right now I am so curious about. I can't believe that uh, Mother Nature would create such a thing. It blows my mind, and I know you do have some experiences with them. So I'm curious to know about those experiences, and I'm also very curious on how they impacted your life in any way, because I'm sure they did.
Mm. Yeah, well, it's all starting with the gateway drug, cannabis, right? I'm just playing, but it is funny. Everyone's always been programmed to say like, "Oh, it's a gateway drug, cannabis." But
Hmm.
it is. It's a good appetizer to lead you into what's possible with the human mind and consciousness, right? As cannabis
Hmm.
opens up the gates for me, because it's a much more lower impact, less volatile thing to tap into, right? Cannabis when I was like 15 years old, I began playing around with that with friends and introduced it to me and on and off. But the next best thing that happened in my life was having mushrooms come into my life. So I didn't even look for them. I wasn't scouting for them. And that's one of the strong pillars I believe in is if you have a captivation to lean into or towards psychedelics or plant medicines is, let it come to you. Don't necessarily just be chasing it because if you're chasing it, that's going to lead into something that may lead into like you're in a fear state, you're in a state of lack, right? You're wanting, the word want means to lack. And so if you're wanting something, you're putting yourself in a position of like, I'm in a state of lack. Therefore, when I receive this, is this really going to fulfill the void in
Hmm.
my heart? No, it's not, right? Same goes for money, same goes for sex, porn, all these things are just void fillers, but they aren't really filling the void. So psychedelics, I guess to preface with all of it is like mushrooms really became the catalyst for me to dive into even further. I just had the most beautiful experiences when I was 16, 17, which is pretty young, you don't really know who you are, what you're going to. You're just kind of playing around, having a good time. And for me, it was just a lot of laughter, fun, play with my friends. It brought out that really, really like 8-year-old Christian. That 4-year-old Christian came out. that inner child wonder. And even at 16, we have that, but it starts to fade very slowly through the education system and some of these things we're getting into. So
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms really open up the gate of just childlike wonder, like, whoa, this is really what it feels like to connect with nature and the waviness of it and the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
visuals and the feeling in the heart, that warmth in the heart. So eventually that led into things like, okay, I went to a music festival, in like 2018, pre-COVID, with some buddies, my best friends, and played around with LSD, for the first time. LSD was a beautiful experience. That isn't really a plant medicine. It's not necessarily natural. It's extracted. Lysergic
Mm-hmm.
acid diethylamide is extracted from, I believe it's from like wheat germ,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is wild. So it is like natural, but it's a full on extract you have to synthesize, right?
Was it a
However,
similar like experience to mushrooms, LSD, or
very, very
feeling at
different.
least? Yeah.
Very, very different. Yeah, yeah. So LSD feels like, the chakra scale, right? Like the different chakras. So LSD feels like it's much more heady, like you're up in the third eye, like you're just seeing everything. Very
Mhm.
intellectual based, very masculine feeling.
Wow.
Very it feels like you're in a video game type thing, like a 3D
Wow.
video game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when it comes to mushrooms, it feels much more feminine, less masculine, less structure, more wavy. Mushrooms just feel like you're grounding, you're calmer, you kind of yawn a little bit, it's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more yin. It's not as
Mm-hmm.
much yang. Like LSD, you just want to like see the world and move and walk around, and like there's so much interaction and outgoingness with that. So yeah, LSD just opened up the whole like yang perspective of psychedelics, and it was beautiful. And then I combined that, they call candy flipping, with MDMA, which is you know pure MDMA is just like absolutely wonderful as well for opening up the heart. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
studies with MDMA assisted psychotherapy. There's people having literally breakthroughs in their life of taking this medicine MDMA intravenously, and then they have straight up therapy sessions. It's
Mm-hmm.
like psychological therapy sessions, which is incredible what you can get out of that in just 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. People, it changes their life forever. For me, it was recreational. I never sat with this
Mm-hmm.
stuff in a ceremony. So that opened up my heart, opening like, whoa, this is amazing. And that led into some other things. Like just this year, I sat with peyote, the cacti, in a ceremony in Costa
Oh
Rica.
wow.
Yeah, that was a beautiful experience. That's a very heart opening grandfather feeling, just like telling me
Mm-hmm.
you're on the right path, you're doing well.
Wow.
It's just like this, you get this inner knowing from all these plants. They all have
Mm-hmm.
communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Communication centers, and they just transcript it to you without words. You feel it, but then you can turn it
Right.
into words. So
Right. Do those communicate? I mean, these are things that I've heard family members talk about, but do those communications feel like there is something in the room with you, kind of letting you know that that's going on?
yeah, and it's more than in the room, it's in your heart, it's like in your
Right.
body. Yeah.
Right.
It's opening up all these little cells within you of just like, hey, knock, knock, cell. This is what I'm going to speak to you today. And then you just get
Yeah.
these downloads of just like, this is where you're going. You're going the right way, or you're going the wrong way.
Wow.
Make a better decision here. So, some people that go in these ayahuasca. I haven't sat with ayahuasca yet, but people sit with ayahuasca in Peru and different locations, South America generally, and they come back and they're like, I do not want to work at my 9 to 5 job again, right? They have these
Mhm.
epiphanies of just like, fuck that, like so.
Yeah.
It can be really good, but also it could be very life changing too.
Yeah. Well, I kind of know the answer to this, but do you think they help you build and shape who you are today?
Absolutely, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's forged a it's forged a powerful introspection of what is this world, this matter we have
Mm-hmm.
connecting to spirit. Because we're
Mm-hmm.
not just dense physical objects like our school system, our medical system tell us. Like there's literally a zero zilch teaching in the medical system about how you can heal your body from an injury with your mind. They never
Mm-hmm.
talk about that, right? It's too esoteric, it's too weird, it's too abstract. There's not enough science to back it up that your mind and your thoughts create your reality. And this is a fact in my life, is like when I've sat with psychedelics, it's helped me guide me towards like meditation, more
Mm-hmm.
readily, and realizing I can tap into this feeling without necessarily this exogenous outside, you know, uh, outside material that I put in my body, and then boom, all this stuff happens. Like I can tap into this without that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really, really beautiful thing what it's done for my life for sure.
Right. There's something that you mentioned that I loved because I'm 17 right now. I'm about to turn 18, but I
Amazing.
dropped out of high school a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
because of what you just mentioned about the school system, how they program us to think a certain way for their own. Um, they want you to be something specific.
Mm-hmm.
That pisses me off. So that's
Yeah.
why I dropped out. Why? I mean, in your opinion and your experience, why do you think it's like that? And it's not just the school system; it's all these agendas and systems and bullshit. But why do you think it is like that?
Like, why do I think the setup? Why do you think it's set up this way? Like the systems in
Mm-hmm.
a way, dude. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just like kind of like the sheeple comment. Like if you can put people into a system of stay in your like okay look at the how synonymous and identical the educational system, like you go to any high school right now and compare that to a prison, it's almost identical. You go to the lunchrooms, you see the plates, they're the same shitty foods on the plates, like macaroni one side, little burger, whatever. Okay, same foods. You go in the lines. Okay, check in. Hey, stay in your line, right? You raise your hand to speak. You
You
know, when
get
it
beat
comes
up
to
in the
being in prison,
bathroom.
you can't even speak basically. Yeah. Yeah, the bathrooms, like you're pretty much yeah, like you have to take a pass to go anywhere, to go to the bathroom, knock knock, like get out of the jail cell.
Yeah.
Everyone's lined up, in lines facing one way. You never interact in a circle. Like, why don't we just exchange and put all the chairs in a circle? So this is more like a
Mm.
Socratic seminar where we're all even. It's not like there's
Mm-hmm.
guys in the back, guys in the front. Teachers are always staring you down. Um, Everything is set up in a way to keep you in your lane. And if you stay in your lane, it's safe. But is
Mm-hmm.
safe happiness? Is safe peace? Is safe
Mm-hmm.
creativity? No, it's not. It's the opposite. Creativity equals destruction of the system. And what does that equal? Well, it equals complete sovereignty, and then you don't rely on, the system for food. You don't rely on the system for water. You don't rely on it for shelter. All the basic foundations as a human. So
Mm-hmm.
all of it's interconnected to the IRS. All of it's connected to the Federal Reserve, the money system,
Mm-hmm.
the Rockefellers. I could go. I'm just naming words now. Everyone's probably like, "What are you talking about?" But really, that's what it is. There's foundations to this stuff that we can't explain because the more you stay in your lane, the more that you are you're not a threat, right? But if I
Mm-hmm.
can be an entrepreneur, that's a threat. That's why I
Mm-hmm.
get taxed more than if someone who's working 100K thousand job a year,
Mm-hmm.
$100,000 job a year for whatever corporate job. They're safe. They're not getting taxed as much. They have all these benefits. They have insurance. They have right.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm doing that myself, I'm not getting any of those bonuses. So that's a threat. They're purposely setting it up to where it's harder. So yeah, I mean the core of it is I don't think it's necessarily a nefarious thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone what needs to be sick. It's definitely not that. There's good people out there that are doing their best in hospitals and teachers and whatnot. But the problem is they're unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they're unconscious. So rising them up to consciousness, like, hey, you can create your own life. You don't need to rely on this system set in place. It's very liberating. Liberation equals lack of control, right?
Liberation equals lack of control.
Yeah, if you're liberated from the
Yeah,
chains of the system.
of course. So, kind of in the same topic, which is, uh, like you said at the start, being sheeple, being part of the norm. Um, you talk a lot about making decisions outside of this norm, right? Going against the crowd, which is huge, especially nowadays. Um, did you have some type of like aha moment or point where you realize that that is what is needed for creativity, for freedom to achieve your best self?
Yeah, man, it's kind of funny. It's intertwining with psychedelics and also um, I think a big profound part of it was the people I surrounded myself with online in the
That's beautiful.
interweb and also in the real world. So the more people I decided to follow, the more people I decided to listen to on podcasts, the more people I watched on YouTube,
Hmm.
all the interweb stuff at a young age became my inner voice. And so then
Mm.
I created these thoughts over time. It wasn't like an epiphany, like one day I was just like, oh, I get it. It's just like, no, this became a gradual thing. Um, yeah, I'm really proud of myself for making the choices to be like,
Mm.
I'm going to make independent thoughts. I'm going to choose to invest in this business despite my parents saying like that's a lot of money, whatever it is. Like all these things um, that are safeguarding us, but they don't necessarily want us happy. That's the thing I started waking up to is like getting bold and getting ballsy is like how you lead to success, trusting the unknown. So For
Of
me, it
course.
wasn't like an all overnight thing. It was just like a gradual thing. First getting out of the friend groups I had from high school, going to community college in St. Louis, Missouri for another 2 to 3 years. All my friends were going to Missouri State and Mizzou, and they were just partying, and I was seeing them online and feeling like, damn, FOMO, 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 like seeing them have a good time. And then I started unfollowing them, and then I started following all
Mm,
these. I was like
yeah.
getting into health. I started following all these people, and it led into my tribe, my high vibe tribe, which made my thoughts my reality.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm definitely something similar that I'm going through, which I'm happy to. But there's something that you mentioned right now, which is this boldness.
Mm,
There's this tweet that I have as my wallpaper, which is from Ruby. You know who he is, of course.
yeah, good
It's
stuff.
simple. You either increase sacrifice or decrease desire.
Mm,
Super simple, right? These are crazy synchronicities for me right now.
yeah, man, it's
Yeah.
wild. And see, the synchronicity is that you're not saying it's a coincidence. You're saying it's a synchronicity. That alone is a big mindset shift.
Hmm.
Versus like, oh, that's a coincidence. Like, oh, that happens to be that way. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, there's deeper meaning to it. This happened for a reason, right?
What do you think about synchronicities? Why? No, why do you think about it? Synchronicities isn't the correct question, but how do we? I feel like the more you practice this synchronicity or being aware of the synchronicity is where the more it'll appear, right?
Absolutely. The more you're aware of them and catch them, right? There's a book called The Celestine Prophecy by James Redford. Highly,
Sure.
highly recommend that book. It's such a fun, exploring adventure book. Um, yeah, The Celestine Prophecy is really good. Very short, easy read, but there's also multiple ones where it's like the 11th insight and things like that. Basically, he's going around seeking to find these insights based on his first coincidence or synchronicity when he's at like a coffee shop or something, and he hears this interaction. I forgot how it exactly starts, but he ends up going to Peru and just leaving his old job, and every person he interacts with and every little experience he has, he becomes very, very aware of how this is something that is morphing with time, and there's like this pure synchronicity within synchronicities. Like everything is happening in a long term, like long format, but also it's like predictable in his head because he's creating his reality, but also it's totally unpredictable and unknown. So it's like this morphing effect of like how we can create our realities is based on
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging these synchronicities. Oh, I see that. I met this one person who talked to me about this one specific thing that I ended up having this thought about 2 days ago. Very strange, right? So when you connect little dots like that,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, holy crap. Everything here is kind of like an algorithm, and we're actually just typing away at the numbers and the codes to create the next algorithm. And then the algorithm keeps getting made and you keep making it every step. So if you're vibrating at a frequency, which sounds woo woo, but if you're vibrating at a frequency of trust and love
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
positivity, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to attract more of that trust, love, and positivity. And you'll notice that trust, love, positivity. On the contrary, you can have the complete opposite effect, which is if you start vibrating at a frequency of insecurity, shame, guilt, the unknown, fear, you're going to create more of that. And you're going to notice more of that. It's just going to create a negative feedback loop with that. So it can go either way, right? Energy does not care if you're like, so for instance, I think about this with money as well. And money doesn't care if you're good or evil. Money cares about intention. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
wealthiest people in the world right now, and the entire earth, some of the wealthiest families, like BlackRock, Vanguard, owning some of these big conglomerates, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, these families have so much money. Now, are they treating the world with a lot of love and regenerative farming and healthy resourcing of foods and, treating everyone as equals and, not controlling everyone? No, they aren't. So there is some sort of like nefarious evil energy there.
Mm-hmm.
But does that money care about that? Absolutely not. The money cares about whether you have intention, and their
Intention.
intention is based on something that is not based on good. It's based on evil. Now, does that mean that? Yeah, I guess it's the end of that story. It's just like money doesn't care. But that goes with everything in life. So your thoughts program your reality is such a basic, silly statement, but it's so true.
Mm-hmm. How did you become aware of this kind of like law of attraction?
A lot of profound. I was bringing up like podcasts and books. I just started diving into, you know, when Joe Dispenza was on the rise like 10 years ago, I started diving into
Wow.
his work and his books. There's a book that he
Mm-hmm.
has that's really changed my life, which is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That's a really good one. It's super dense, but it's really cool because he talks about just how we have such a habit of certain characteristics and thoughts and personalities that are based upon our childhood that we have
Mm-hmm.
been conditioned to follow. And then we start realizing, oh, this something doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like me. I'm acting like
Mm-hmm.
myself. And then all of a sudden you break the habit of being yourself through all the crazy linguistic changes, the words you're using, and all these different things. So books, podcasts, meeting people in the real world as well has been super helpful. Seems like there is multiple synchronicities happening in my life relating to just my best friends and like shifting friends, and then meeting, like when I started just being a little open-minded orb when I went to university here in Fayetteville, I started meeting some people that were just very high level cognitive thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not very common here in Arkansas. You meet that many people. It's not like I'm in LA and you're constantly bouncing around people that are in that headspace. Like it's not as common, but I kept having these synchronicities and meeting the right people, and they were just kept nudging me on the right path. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, multitude of things for sure.
Mm-hmm. A little bit on the topic. What is your current understanding of God? And I ask the question like that because I feel like the more you connect to that, the more you understand of it, right?
Right. Yeah. So I get it. I always think it's a unique question for, not saying you asked this, but when people ask me, do you believe in God?
Mm-hmm.
That, because you asked a different question, but when people ask the question, do you believe in God? It's a very, very subjective based question. So when you ask that question, just in and of itself, you're not going to get the answer you want because my perspective is different than yours. So then
Mm-hmm.
what is God to you is the first question, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, do you believe in God? It's, what is God? And based on your independent thought processes, right? So for me, God is everything. God is the things that make my toenails grow. God
Mm-hmm.
is, God is the grass blowing outside in front of me. God is the butterfly flying. God is the car in front of me that I can turn on and begin to drive all the way down 12,000 miles if I want, right? Like how that's what I start looking at is like not necessarily I'm worshiping or like there's multiple gods, maybe, but there is one encompassing God. There's like the universal God, and the universal God is like everything all at once coming together, all biology, all matter, everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like these independent gods that come in, and it's kind of related to like Stoicism. They call it independent logos, and then the universal logos meaning similar to God in a way, the Tao, the guiding force. There's independent choice, there's free will, but there's also this universal power that's guiding us every which way. That's
Mm-hmm.
where the synchronicities line up. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
choosing these synchronicities, they're happening. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, I am choosing them because I'm choosing to recognize them. So
Exactly.
that's the weird part about it. My interpretation of God is so vast that it's hard to put it into words because I've had so many profound experiences just from tapping into things like fasting or tapping into things like so many different things, just like different thought, changing the way I think of the world, right? That's all a part of connecting with God more. I think, over the years, it's grown into more of the Eastern thought processes like breath work, getting out of the physical body, trying to elevate into more of a
Mm-hmm.
spiritually sound connection to self and others. But it's really just, Paul Chek has a definition of love, which I think is synonymous to God. And it is, love is the flow of energy and information through empathic connection to self and others. And there's a couple other words I think he throws in there, but it's a flow of energy and information through which empathic connection of self and others. So it's like literally having empathy for all things and self. And that's like a form of love. And it's the flow of that energy and information leading into that. And that's the same thing as God, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Were there some type of like synchronicity or uh, present moment that made you aware of this? Of,
Mm, man, I think it was humbling myself that God is within me, but I'm not necessarily God.
okay,
Like, if that makes sense. Like,
of course.
yeah, it
That you're
wasn't
a
a
part of
specific
him, maybe.
experience. What's that?
That you're like a part of him, maybe, or of that.
Yeah, see there you said him as well. So think about that. That's
Yeah.
another thing. It's like in our culture too is, and that's not even a bad thing to say that, but also it's just interesting how saying him, it's the masculine, but really God is the divine dualities. It's him and her, so that's one thing I've thought about too, is like my interpretation of God was based on my biblical upbringing, right? Which isn't bad or good. It's just I realized that isn't necessarily how I want to see the world. Is like it's this him in the sky that's male dominant, and it's this patriarchal kind of energy. Not that I think that way, like in general, but it is something that's interesting. How that's kind of how that emerged is through biblical references, through Christianity and other religions. So I think it's really a deep subject, because I would take these philosophy classes in college. Those were the actually classes I enjoyed. And yeah, we'd always ask the question, what is love? What is God? And never come up with an answer. It's just like, what's your argument?
You just understand it. You don't have to explain it.
Exactly. It's an understanding now, it's an understanding. Putting it to words is making it too, it's too heady. It's too intellectual. It's all a body experience, right? That's where I brought up like, okay, breath work. Like it's easier to connect with God when you are cleansed from toxins, plastics, heavy metals, mold, parabens, like just like random ingredients in your chemicals. Your body's cleansed. It's lighter. It's easier to connect with God when you're not lustful. It's easier to connect with God when you're connected to nature. It's easier to connect with God when you're getting more sun, when you're sleeping, when you're kind to people and healthy with your relationships, when you're eating healthy, when you're moving consistently. It's easier to connect with God. And that's what I strongly believe that, but if we're toxin loaded and we're judgmental and we're insecure and not striving to become a better person, then we're obviously creating a longer void away from God.
Yeah. Lust. This is a topic that I think safe to say like 70% to 80% of my podcasts have been related to this topic, because certain groups, as we talked about at the start, that want to take control over the crowd, they mostly do it now through lust. Right? It's such a sacred and powerful and sensible energy.
The desire, in a way.
Right. Yeah. Right. How do we take control over that energy? How do we stop letting other forces manipulate us through lust?
I think it's two things. First and foremost, analyzing what is your purpose, what is your why with making changes. First, recognizing, is this serving me or is this not? If you recognize it's serving you, maybe it's unconscious, maybe it's conscious, keep doing it, whatever. If you recognize it's not serving you, clearly you're conscious about it and you're realizing this isn't serving me. And I'm realizing that this outside force is taking advantage of me. It could be maybe this fast food is tempting me. Well, there is an externalization of it for one. So first, if you can switch from externalization to internalization of, oh, it's maybe it isn't this outside force that's controlling me. Because when you say that, you give your power away. There's personal responsibility just vanished, right? So if you say like, oh, the government's making me weak or controlled, then all of a sudden you're in that position. Or you're saying like, IRS is taking all my money, which is true, then you're putting yourself in that position. Or you're saying like, this food is taunting me and making me sick. Well, you're externalizing it. So if you can take complete ownership, that's the first step. Secondly is recognizing, how do I switch this habit, right? And the second part is not just creating, the word void keeps coming up, but creating this void of, I took this habit away. I'm no longer eating the junk food. Now there's this open, empty space. Where do I put my energy now? Where do I redirect it? So if you don't have something you can redirect your energy into, you're not going to stick to a new habit, right? If I take away the Twinkies I'm eating all the time, what's next? You just not going to eat anything? That might work. Or you can switch it into something healthy, like some dates with some butter inside of it, right? Whatever. Like just find something that's an alternative that you can swap into. And that goes for everything in life, is have a swap. When you take something away, you leave emptiness. It needs to be filled with something else, right? So those are a couple things I would ponder about.
What would you say that could be a swap for lust, maybe creation, because it's like it's a similar. Um,
Oh, like consuming, yeah, versus creativity.
mm-hmm.
It's a good way to look at it. I like
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, recognizing like, hey, am I consuming, and am I wanting more and more and more and consuming?
Mm-hmm.
How do I swap this into creating something for the world or
Mm-hmm.
myself?
No, yeah,
That's good.
exactly. No, that's
I like that.
yeah. Christian, what do you value most about yourself?
Mm. I think my sense of humor, my sense of providing a sense of light,
I
life,
love
and
that.
play and joy through the world. I value that a lot about myself. I think the world can fall into traps of dryness, and I think humor is such a good medicine. And laughing and playing and joking around and light sarcasm here and there is good. Not too much sarcasm, that's not good, but a little bit here and there is good. I think it's good to joke around and play and bring humor into serious topics. I think it's really healthy.
It is very healthy. It is. I think my favorite people are the most humorous people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Christian, for my last question, which is one that I ask to all of my guests because I love it so much, which is what brings you most joy in life?
Mm. Community, man, connecting with people. I just love meeting new people and learning from them. I already talk my head off and every day, you know, and speaking of creativity, I love communicating. My throat's always working. But when I can open my ears up, we got 2 ears in one mouth. I think that was
Wow.
who said that? Aristotle or Hippocrates, one of the guys said it. And 2 ears, one
2 years in
mouth,
one
you know,
mouth.
it's such a good, profound way to look at life is like listening more and speaking when necessary. I think for me personally, I get so much joy out of learning from others and
Mm.
communicating with others and creating new friends, man, like lifelong friends. Finding the full fuck yes friends, that gets me so much joy. And also just going to rad nature spots. I freaking love that.
I love
New
that.
nature spots, man, whether it's like a waterfall or like a desert, like whatever environment. I love just seeing the beauty of nature. You know, I see so many sick, like, and not sick, but healthy is a better word to rephrase it. So many cool places on these videos online of like just
Coffee.
extravagant, like alien like locations on Earth. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, dude, I'm going to visit there sometime. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that, Christian. Brother, thank you a lot for today. I appreciate your time, your wisdom, your words, your ears. Thank you, man.
I appreciate it, Alfonso. It's been fun, man.
Yeah. Give me a second.